Welcome, everybody. We are going to get started in 1 minute. We are covering the Northstar framework today. While we're waiting, I want to hear what people have in place already around the Northstar framework. Do you have any North Stars? We're going to go through what ours are today, at least for one of our products. But yeah, the chat's open. I want to hear industry type of app, what kind of Northstar metrics you're looking at. And then also, this is a super hot topic. I want to hear everyone's takes. I'm sure I'm going to cross the line in terms of how people think about this. So I want everyone to be yelling at me in the chat when I say something that they don't agree with. Cool. So yeah, let's get started. Bunch of people here. Appreciate everyone coming. Yeah, today we're going through the Northstar framework, kind of a basic outline. And then we're going to go into a bit more really specific details about one of our Northstar metrics at LogRocket and how it relates to how you should think about product analytics in general. And it's a really good exercise of like zooming into something really particular about usage, taking that kind of assumption, making hypotheses about it, bringing it back to the rest of the business, and then trying to deduce what North Stars you should be looking at. And the S on the end of that is already a hot topic. But so yeah, let's get started. And this was based on, we actually have a really good blog post about this, which I saw, and I was like, we've been working on this for 6 months. So that's great. I just put it in the chat if anyone wants to read it. So yeah, let's get going. Oops. Cool. And yeah, so we're going to be looking at LogRocket, one of LogRocket's Northstar metrics internally. We're going to actually be using LogRocket on LogRocket. So if it gets confusing, stop me. But yeah, if you like some of the product analytics parts you see about LogRocket, go sign up for a demo. We'll send the link around after. And you'll get some free swag. You might even get a nice new product analytics solution for you to use every day when you're defining your Northstar metrics. Yeah, and this will be recorded too. So cool. I'm your host. I'm Luke Tabinis. I'm the director of growth at LogRocket. I've been here for 4 years, and I was just reflecting on like what our Northstar metrics have evolved over the years, and just like the maturity of it. We're a 6-7 year old company at this point. And this exercise I'm going to go through is definitely our most mature and like advanced way of thinking about this. And I'm sure there's others on the call right now that are going to be way ahead of light years ahead of us. But I think just really how this relates to product analytics, I think is really cool for our use case internally, and then for others on the phone. I think it's important to call out. You don't have to be using LogRocket for this. A lot of the stuff relative to product analytics works if you've got Amplitude, Mixpanel, other stuff, even Google Analytics. You can really just do this process with any kind of product analytics tool. So yeah, for those unfamiliar with LogRocket generally, we help software teams build better digital experiences. It's a mix of really 3 core product areas: sessions, issues, and analytics. We're going to be looking at all 3 today, but mostly on the analytics side relative to how we're defining and measuring Northstar metrics. So our sessions product, Session Replay, and typically it's helping software teams help solve user-reported issues. So that's either a UX problem, a technical issue, anything that's like not going great with your applications or your websites or anything. Just got a quick question. How are we different from Pendo? So I think Pendo's really strength is the kind of like in-app guides and everything. We're more so just pure analytics, which Pendo has a lot of too. So we've got some overlap there, but really integrate with their like application guides and all that. So thanks for the question. So yeah, second is issues, which actually, so our Northstar metric is around our issues product that we're going to be going through today. And that basically is helping people find issues faster. And we've got a huge product release on Monday. So all of this is all happening, really good timing, pretty interesting. And then analytics is conversion, adoption, optimization, and like Northstar metrics optimization too. Cool. So yeah, like I said, fundamentals. Some other examples, which I think exhibit like a really key piece of Northstar metrics, how to define it with product usage analytics, and then tracking and optimizing your Northstar metric. We're going to use LogRocket. Any product analytics tool works here. So what is it? Northstar metric represents a company's core value that gets delivered to a customer via their service or product. The one metric that matters most to sustain the long-term growth of the organization. So like, I'm sure everyone's got opinions on the V1 versus V multiple. Yeah, us internally, we've got a multiple, even though Serby on the blog says you need the one. So yeah, why does this matter? And like I said, this is like acutely present right now. I think the two big things really is unifying teams around a shared goal that make sure everyone's aligned, all of the different parts of work getting done are all kind of working towards the same goal. And so like, you've got a big product launch coming up that might affect Northstar metrics. Like it's a really good kind of way to second guess something or say like, is this actually going to impact what the product launch should, which is our Northstar metric. So getting marketing, CS, sales, in our case of a B2B SaaS product, all aligned around the same goal and all kind of like constantly thinking about the same goal and framing what they're doing within the bounds of that goal. And then second thing is just ensuring that what you're doing is actually aligning value with what you're delivering with business needs internally. And I think the biggest thing for like those two things is making sure Northstar metrics are really well defined before huge groups of work starts. So whether that's a product launch, big feature release, making sure that your Northstar metrics are really aligned before you even start work really helps, because it just prevents like pivoting and back and forth and everything. And I think doing this process and spending the time on it early is really critical for any kind of product, website, business initiative, anything. Cool. Keep going. Yeah, this one's really important. Revenue is not a Northstar metric. It's usually the kind of easy thing to lean back onto. And it's really not a good proxy for value delivered to a customer. It's what the business needs to grow and survive. But yeah, a couple of like good examples of this is airlines, all of them now boost revenue by charging seat assignments or carry-ons, but that doesn't provide value for the customer. It's actually detracting value, in my opinion. I'm sure most of your opinions. So like just picking like revenue added via add-ons is really not a good value prop for your customers. And then similar, more in line with like B2B SaaS is just like you sell a big giant plan and then no one adopts your product. Like you get the revenue, but the customer's not getting value. So yeah, revenue's not the great option there. And so let's think about some examples. I think pretty straightforward, right? Spotify, they want people spending a lot of time listening to content in their applications. Uber, rides per week, weekly Zoom meetings. And I think like the big, really important thing to look at here is that time element. So we're going to be talking about this. I'm going to address this a few times, but it's not just reaching a milestone, it's that regular reaching of the milestone. So weekly, week, time. So I think when we're trying to start to hypothesize around what our Northstar metrics should be, we want to identify biases and everything, but also want to identify like time and how that recurring like aha usage is defined, because it might not be weekly, it might be monthly, depending on how people use your application. If you're in a business that's primarily e-commerce and it's seasonal, like that time will be very different than a single metric like purchased or something. And then yeah, last is kind of when you're looking at how you define these metrics, what kind of products do you have? Just wanted to like highlight again that we do have one product, like, there's one thing you log into, but like all SaaS products, they're pretty, we do have multiple products within one overall solution. So because of that, as a company, we've decided to have 3 Northstar metrics around each one of these use cases. And again, we're gonna focus on the issues Northstar metric today and how we got there internally. So yeah, in terms of how we actually provide value, we're helping software teams identify and fix the most severe user-facing issues in their products. And that means like recurring, right? It's pretty simple, but fixing one issue and then not logging in, isn't really what we're looking for. We're looking for, rapid improvement, testing, integrating LogRocket into your testing, into new feature releases. We want to help software teams move a lot more faster and be confident when they release something that, if there's issues, they'll find out about them really, really quickly and be able to address them. So one kind of anecdote I saw the other day that I think really like captures value instead of like dollars or just activity. Tim is trying to sell me something, but LogRocket customer, I'm sure you wouldn't mind me sharing this, but this is more around our sessions product. But having a weekly LogRocket watch party, like that to me is such a good indicator of value over just like product usage. So just wanted to highlight that as like providing value is really separate from just like numbers, dollars, some things that come up in product analytics. This is kind of what we're looking for with our issues product as well. Cool. So how are we kind of figuring out how to start the process and defining the Northstar metric? I think there's so many different ways to do this. I think you can really start from like the big macro standpoint and go down to the individual level. I think we started kind of on the opposite side, and that's typically how we look at how we use LogRocket too, is like we're looking at individual people, bringing those out into groups of people, or maybe looking at the same individual over time, and then looking at bigger groups of people. And we're going to go through that in a second. So some other things, like just in terms of how to start like defining hypotheses around what should we be tracking for our Northstar metrics. These are some other areas that we looked at, and I'm sure there's pretty clear equivalence within your organization. So yeah, we're thinking about our issues product, how we want to measure success, how to measure delivering value. And yeah, I think the first thing is just leaning on your sales CSM teams to identify customers who we know already have value. So we want to basically get the whole spectrum of people who already are getting value from a product in our case, people who might not be, and all that stuff in the middle. So one thing is to just go talk to people internally and just say, who do you know who's really like using this product a lot already, or could benefit from maybe a net new product. Yeah, the third thing is really important, just relative to product analytics and BI tools and where information lives. We have all of our business data in our BI tool relative to revenue, retention, everything. And that's just another good place to start to mix some of that product analytics data alongside with like what the value that a customer has, pays back to the business, because we obviously want our Northstar metric to be pretty aligned with like, we're pretty confident if our Northstar metric is reached, we will have good business outcomes. So that's kind of where, starting to go from the small individual people, maybe individual accounts, looking to things in aggregate relative to the specific feature. And then the last thing is just identifying targets for interviews. I know this is like a really time-consuming process, and product analytics, having this really down and having your hypotheses set early, you can make that process a lot more quickly. So you can go see, if you've got a super user who's in this product every day, getting a lot of value, go focus on that person rather than kind of just shoot from the hip and schedule 20 interviews and hopefully you get one. So, when you're looking for interviews, targets to interview, start with your product analytics. Cool. So yeah, we're going to just jump into kind of how we started to look at it. And there's going to be a bunch of different charts here, and they all kind of represent like a different phase of how we use product analytics to define our use cases, or Northstar metrics, sorry. So here we're looking at LogRocket's metrics product analytics feature. And just to be clear, like we're actually looking at people view our issues product, which lives in a separate tab. So right away, you can start to like really, pick people that are, have high usage or maybe have low usage, and then go investigate, how are they using this feature? How are they not using this feature? Where did they get stuck? So basically, I'm just, this list is people that are using the feature at all, and I can just go in and easily just go see exactly what they're doing. That was a test user. Find this for real person. So right away, I can just see exactly how someone's interacting with a specific feature. Right here is actually looking at a session, and really just understand like, how much time do they spend on each screen from an anecdotal point? Like when they're moving between things, like how quickly are they able to do it just from this one individual person? And say you find something really interesting, like that's the person to go interview, or that's, using that pattern to go develop other kind of like more aggregate metrics, is kind of that next step. So we want to be able to get look at samples of individuals on how they're using a particular feature, and then bring it up to be able to go develop something like this. So right now we're looking at the triage part of issues, and we're looking at for more than 1 second. So this is just a pretty basic way to go see lots of users using the product, to try to see like, should we target time within this feature? Should we target recurring usage? And then do that investigation of looking at the aggregate and then looking at individual people. Cool. So now we've kind of got some hypotheses, just based on usage. We think that, frequency of use is important, time spent is important, and then returning usage is probably the most important thing. So yeah, basically we're starting on just really looking particularly into how people are using the individual product. We're building additional kind of aggregate views of how groups of people are using the product a lot or a little. So that could be filters in like something like LogRocket, like clicked certain things within issues. Are people who are really successful interacting with specific parts of the product? And you usually have to mix and match kind of a lot of this like rich product analytics things, because it might not always be a click element. It might be something has to be present, like, hey, you just fixed an issue, great job. So it's really just kind of like narrowing in your hypotheses in terms of what types of activity are leading people to be successful or not, and then proactively kind of building those charts ahead of time as you're also kind of looking in your BI tool for, hey, do people who visit this particular section of our issues product, are they actually worth more from a dollars perspective as well? Cool. So before I go to like what we ended at, just a couple more things to really just keep in mind. And like, this is part of this upfront planning stage that like you don't want to run into after like a big feature release or a big product launch. You want to think about them really, really strongly up front. So one is ease of measurement. Like usefulness of a Northstar metric or accuracy, I think, can be sacrificed for ease of measurement. So in terms of what we ended up at, I think we, had something more accurate after we kind of combined our hypotheses from our product analytics with our data in the BI system. We could have gotten more complicated, right? Whether that's like cutting by customer type, cutting by specific parts of the issues feature. But really ease of measurement is important. So if you have to simplify things, it's usually better. And then second thing is ability to control the metric. So I think these are really related. If you go too specific, you might have more ability to control that, but like you lose some of that benefit of actually defining the Northstar metric and making it broad that represents your customers in the best way. So I think just like having some hypotheses of like, if this is our Northstar metric, we can expect us to influence it in these ways, and we'll expect to see this outcome in terms of the actual number itself. So like, if you pick a metric and then get to like 100%, it's not going to work that well. So where are we? And then I think the other important thing for ease of measurement is like, if you've got a really complicated application and you are kind of picking a more usage, product analytics driven Northstar metric, make sure everything's set up properly before. You'll see in a second when I pull up like our actual Northstar metric monitoring, there's a kind of an issue with, tracking a specific kind of interaction that like was important for the overall Northstar metric, and making sure events are kind of set up, custom events for your product analytics tool. Like I said, like if there's something new introduced that might mess with some of the more particular kind of sub metrics around your Northstar metric, make sure those are kind of listed out, and be active about understanding what kind of events and things that might impact your actual analytics. So cool. What was our result? So the data team did a really good job, and I think what we did is we started pretty wide. Like we understood that basically just viewing issues, and I'm gonna actually go do that. So let's pull up our issues product. Here's a sneak peek. Oh, look, all of our recommended issues are triaged. So I'm participating in our Northstar metric. So basically we found like pretty straightforward, and the way we found it was just using our path analysis that actually opening this modal and viewing this particular issue is ending up being the most important kind of mix of being broad, being particular, and having good value. So this is pretty simple. We can just define it as a page view rule with our product analytics tool, which is really nice. So keep it simple, don't make it too complicated. And so the next step was like kind of like the really like data intensive task of saying like, what's the number, right? So I think like rather than trying to guess at that number, is we created a score. And so that's really nice because like all of our users have a score. So as we're trying to target one of those scores with whatever our Northstar metric is, we can actually just see the other cohorts rather than say, let's say we need three views per account of this modal. That doesn't really tell the whole story around everyone else. And I think it might hurt as you're trying to affect that number. Let's say you're getting people to do 3, but they're not being successful in other places. So like having a more holistic score was really important, because let's say we need to edit our Northstar metric too. So like a lower score, having that already set up is really important. So basically we said, ended up just like looking at a bunch of financial numbers, which I wish I could show, but obviously can't, private company. We had created a score, and it was, so a 1 out of 5, a 5 was the top 10% of usage. A 4 was 25%, the top 25% of usage of this particular view we're looking at right now. And then a 3 was 50, a 2 was 25 and above, and then a 1 was like 0. So basically, what's really nice is, crunched all the numbers with our data team BI tool, and then came up with this, right? Not the prettiest graph, and we're making some progress here, but that's why we have a massive feature release on Monday that we think is really going to affect this. So what are we looking at? We've got a health score of 3, so that's 50% of the metric of viewing issues. That's kind of our Northstar goal. And this is kind of like where we arrived was, let's try to affect the average number of orgs using issues on a weekly basis. And percentage is really, really important here, because we actually don't want people to be constantly going back into issues and looking at the same issue. We just want people to start using it because we're starting to recommend issues to people. So really the best workflow for us is, an org for us is, a company, a group of people. We recommend an issue. Someone's going and looking at it once, maybe looking at a couple of sessions and saying, ooh, this is a problem. I can fix this. Go to fix it. That issue's gone. Or they say, this actually isn't an issue. I'm just going to triage it down and we can ignore it and never really look at it again. So rather than we want any org to just get to this score once, we want the percentage of our total orgs using it regularly. So that was pretty important just in terms of how marketing, how we activate people into this product. And then, like I mentioned, we built releasing a huge new functionality that, we really think is going to get this from, 9% of orgs to hopefully much, much closer to the 100. And building this up front, like I mentioned, we can go monitor these other cohorts really, really nice. So, people with lower health we'll fix someday. Oh, that doesn't look right. Cool. So yeah, biggest important thing, I think, doing the upfront planning is really important here. And then, as you're thinking about the planning is think about what you're looking for in terms of behavior in that middle step before you're making the final assumptions to do that kind of expensive data work to define your actual Northstar metric. So just in terms of things to think about, what are people clicking? What are people visiting? I think element visible is something that people don't think a lot about, based on your application, your website, what are people seeing? That's really going to go affect their behavior. And, whether they're unsuccessful or successful, they might be actually experiencing. So that's another really good filter to just keep in mind as you're kind of looking for your Northstar metric relative to your product analytics data. And I think that's all I got. Ooh, 28 minutes, not bad. Cool. Anyone have any questions? Oh yeah. And then this will also be shared. So this was in the post that we'll share around again too. I think it's a really, we didn't actually use this exact framework, but I think it really kind of captures really well with what we went through today. Basically, input metrics here are really just around product usage. And I think building those analytics charts ahead of time and listing these out and then confirming or denying how many times did people return to take the action in the breadth sense? How long are they spending in your feature area? How often are they doing a certain action within the session or something? And then time between events is the other big filter that I think is really important to make sure you've got that monitoring set up front. So how fast were they able to actually complete an action? So whether that's checkout or in our sense, triage an issue. And you're building these, looking at them, doing that broad sense to really particular individual level of usage to try to start making the proper hypotheses here, and then understanding long and midterm impact. So I think a lot of this comes from internal data of your BI tool, but at the same time, I think understanding impact on behavior, product usage is really important as well. Like if people are really successful with issues, are they going to actually get more value from our sessions product? And thinking about those impacts beyond like what happens if we hit our number, what happens if we don't. So nice little file we'll send around too. But cool. No question. All right. I'm surprised I didn't get any anyone call me out for how we think about this. But yeah, thanks for joining, everyone. We'll send this around. If you get a chance, come check out LogRocket on Monday, especially because we've got a really exciting functionality coming out. Talk to you later. Thank you.